functions. In other words, functions that run only when certain conditions are met. Alright, so crank up Visual Studio, and we're going to talk about also debug versions of software and then release versions of software. And this is very easy. What you do is under Build, there's a configuration manager, and you can change here from debug to release and so on, you see? So first we'll go with debug, make sure that's set to debug there, under the configuration manager. And now let's type here using system. And this is useful when you're writing software because it can show you information when you're debugging. And then, however, once you release the software, you can disable certain functions. Alright, so, and then you're going to say using system.diagnostics, close out the semicolon, okay, namespace, sample, open close brace. Alright, so that's that. Now, you're going to say public class trace, and within this class we are going to define the following symbols. We're going to type conditional, and then the condition specifically is that it's in debug. So I will go within, that looks like this, you see? There you go, so it's like a little bit of a decoration that is applied to a method. There you go. Alright, so let's give this a name now, and a function here, or method, whatever you want to use, which language. Public static void, and then message like this, and then string, and then trace message, close out with a semicolon. Now you're going to say console write line, and then specify something like this here, put trace, okay, and then plus trace message, close out with a semicolon, okay? There you go. So this will run when debug is enabled under the configuration manager. Alright, let me delete this code. And now we can go into class program, and then we're going to say here static void main, and then say string like this, args, open close braces. Right, and so now you're going to say call the trace class and then the message function, and then display something like this, main is starting, close out a semicolon, and then you're going to say if args.length equals 0, then you can say console.writeLine and no arguments have been passed, close out a semicolon. Else, of course, you can do something like this, and you can go through the list of arguments passed into the program. So let me delete this here, and you can say for inti equals 0, and then I less than args.length, and then I++, and by args, of course, I mean the length of this array right here that goes into main, see? Alright, so that looks like this. Open close braces. Now you're going to say console.writeLine, and then we can list the arguments that have been passed, if any. So in our case, we can just say, let's see, and then put the placeholder in here like this. There you go, is, and then I'm going to say another placeholder like that, double quote, and then I, and then args I, and then close out the semicolon. Okay, so this will display them for us. So argument is, and then so on. Alright, at the end, what we're going to do, of course, is call trace. We will say here trace dot message and main ending. There you go. Alright, and now we're going to add console.read key, close out the semicolon. Alright, so that looks good. We can delete this code here. go away code. Alright, so let me close this little window here. This one too. Okay, so we have our public class trace, which has a conditional function which runs only when we are in debug mode. So remember, at first we are in debug mode. You go to Build and Configuration Manager, and make sure that's set to debug. Alright, so now let's go take a look step and start with our debugging. And it says trace main starting, no arguments have been passed, trace main ending. Okay, so now we have some sense of when it begins and ends by using this trace class that we've made here. And further, now we're going to go to Build and Configuration Manager and change this from debug mode to release mode. Close it and go debug, and let's go with just start like that, you see? Wait a second. Only a thing. There you go, see? And it says no arguments have been passed. Now, that means that this method here, because debug is not enabled, it doesn't show, right? It's very simple. In this mode, if you go debug and step into, let's take a look. So, arguments have been passed, read key, that's it. Simple enough, right? On the other hand, if you go to Build, give it a second, it's being a little slow here. Configuration Manager, change this from release to debug mode. We go debug and step into, let's take a look at whether there will be a difference or not. The system should be aware of that, of a certain fact. Debug, step into. It should know that debug is enabled, so let's take a look. Come over here. Now you see, now it's aware of it, so it goes up to the top, calls message, right? Then it calls that, and then main ending, and then it calls message again, and then it waits for user input, like that, you see? So this really does work. So there you go. You have just seen an example of a conditionally executed function. Here the condition is whether debug is enabled or enabled or disabled under the configuration manager. That's how you can, and this is useful when you're tracing information and debugging. Once you're not debugging, then this doesn't get run anymore. Alright, and that is it. So thank you very much. This code is in the sidebar as a PDF. If you have trouble seeing it on the screen, it looks like this at first, and then there's the rest. And that's it. So I'll see you in another video. Thank you.